Let's move on then to South Africa's spending on alcohol has nearly tripled for the week between Christmas and New Year's Day. That's according to the consumer insights and data science firm Eighty20 Consulting. The data shows that just under half of South African adults consumed some form of alcohol in the past month, with non-alcoholic options showing considerable growth. However, South Africa is ranked fifth highest in the world when it comes to consumption of alcohol among regular drinkers. Let's discuss these and other trends in that market. We're now joined by the Eighty20 director, Andrew Fulton. Andrew, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, perhaps we start with how the data was collected.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having us on the show, Mungiwe. So we spoke, there's a company called Trade Intelligence that tracks retail sales, and the number is 150 billion rand per annum for alcohol sales. So, on average, that works out to 414 million rands per day spent on alcohol. And according to the social development deputy minister last year, that triples in the week between Christmas and New Year's, which is not hard to believe, given that, people are celebrating Christmas, celebrating the weather of summer in South Africa, and obviously New Year's is a huge moment for celebration, generally using alcohol for a lot of people. So it just shows how much that spend increases during this one particular period of the year in South Africa.
And when you look at the evolution of the picture over time, are you seeing that people are spending more on alcohol as compared to previous years?
Yeah, I mean, it's from the figures we use. We've also used the MAPS data set, which is a survey of 20,000 people done by the MRF quarterly in South Africa. And we actually noticed that the number of people who consumed alcohol went down last year and then came back up again this year. It could be due to economic reasons. But it's been stable and growing for the past few years. Obviously, during COVID, it took a big hit where you couldn't drink, or you couldn't drink outside of your house. So it's been growing since then, but it's generally stable.
And when you look at the demographics themselves, right, and the breakdowns, because at some point you do have people who are concerned about how young some of those who are taking alcohol, the age has become, and really just much of a concern. So what are you seeing in terms of the shifts there?
Yeah, that's an area where the MAPS data is really useful because it gives a large number of demographics and other variables to compare against and cross-tab against. And what we're noticing is that it certainly is more over-indexed, we would say, towards the younger generations. So Generation X and particularly Generation Y, much more likely to be drinking, about 50% more likely than baby boomers. Once again, this could be an economic issue. They've got more money, they're out at bars more often, they're socializing, they're meeting people, so there are more opportunities for drinking. But certainly we notice more amongst the young population than the older population. Another big skew is metro versus urban. The Roots data set, which is another data set that we use when we're doing our work, says that about 80% of men in urban areas and 70% of women in urban areas have also consumed alcohol in the past month.
And when I look at some of the data here, quite interesting to see that you've got Gen Z as far as the alcoholic energy drinks concerned.
Yeah, I mean, it's a I must admit, it's a category I don't consume myself. But what we did is try to figure out for our clients, if they're looking for certain markets. Woolies went into tinned wine last year, looking for a wealthier, a more female-driven market. So we look at the SKUs and Gen Z, very much obviously a young group looking at alcoholic energy drinks, your Red Bulls and vodkas, etc. Gen Y, much more tinned wine, bottled wine, and craft beer and whiskey. And women, spirit coolers, flavored alcoholic beverages, sparkling wine, and non-alcoholic drinks, which is the other area we've seen growth in. Once again, manufacturers trying to get more into the female market because 60% of the alcohol market is male. So trying to grow that market and then doing with non-alcoholic beverages.
Let's talk a bit more about that non-alcoholic beverages, because I also see, as you say, there is some kind of growth there.
Yeah, so what we're seeing, certainly is people are adding a non-alcoholic beverage to their night out in order to stay a bit more sober, and relying on non-alcoholic beverages around social events with their friends. And we see about 1 million people saying that they've enjoyed a non-alcoholic beer, cider, or gin in the past week, and that's gone up from about 660,000 last year. So certainly growth in that category. The really interesting stat there, though, is only 5% of those abstain from alcohol altogether. So it seems that people that don't drink alcohol are not taking on non-alcoholic beverages. It's more people who are drinking alcohol and just augmenting their drinking behavior with that.
And have you been able to find anything at all as far as illegal alcohol is concerned?
So we don't look specifically at illegal alcohol. None of the data sets that we do look at that. But what it does ask is, have you drank alcohol? It doesn't specify what. So that number of 47% of South Africans consuming some form of alcohol in the past year would include that illegal trade. We just don't have an idea on the volume or the size of that market.
And when you look at the brands, as far as the data is concerned, does it give them a sense of who should they be targeting as far as the data is concerned?
Absolutely. I mean, once again, the data sets look at all of the different major brands in every category of alcohol. And the only one we really looked at for this was, I don't know if you've noticed, but certainly Max Verstappen pushing Heineken 0.0 on the commercials over the last year was an interesting development there. Castle has Castle Free, which is an alcohol-free alternative beer as well, which is slowly approaching Heineken in terms of sales, which is the number one brand globally. Globally is Heineken 0.0.
Interesting. Thank you so much for talking to us, Andrew. Appreciate your time. That does give us a sense of how things are looking as far as the work that has been done is concerned. That's 8020 Director Andrew Fulton there. And in just a moment, we'll be speaking about the relationship when it comes to alcohol itself, right? And Dr. Kosichiane is standing by to speak to us about that. But also later, we'll have a conversation that looks at the initiation season with alcohol, because this is also another area of concern where we do see the brandishing of alcohol during some of the celebrations, and there is one chief that is actually worried about that and what it does then to how sacred this particular rite of passage should be treated. And also then we'll look at the impact that alcohol has on those who are drinking it, particularly when we start to see children being allowed to drink alcohol. All of this coming up after the break.